Why do we taste things? Why do we have taste buds? You ever thought about that? You see, you don't crave what you love, you crave what your taste buds have been trained to want. And right now, in the world we live in, your taste buds have been hijacked. And this isn't about dieting, don't worry. It's about reclaiming your senses, and with them, your focus, energy, and your satisfaction. Because the truth is, you've been trained to crave intensity, not nourishment. And this is why a salad feels like a chore and why sugary cereal feels like comfort. It's not your fault, it's not willingness or willpower, it's wiring. But wiring can change. You don't have to change everything you eat, just how you taste. So how did your taste get hijacked? Well, let's get specific. You see, you're not craving junk food by accident. You've been trained to. Processed food isn't just unhealthy, it's engineered to be addictive. The key here is something called the bliss point. It's a perfect mix of sugar, salt, and fat that lights up your brain without ever actually satisfying you. The formula was created by food scientists at companies like PepsiCo or Campbell's Chicken Noodle Soup. Its goal is not to feed you, but to keep you coming back to buy more product. And it's not just the flavor. These foods are built to hijack all of your senses. Crunch is tuned to be satisfying. If you've ever eaten a chip and you get that nice crunch, it's hitting a specific frequency that satisfies your brain. Mouthfeel is tricking your brain into thinking that you didn't eat it. If you've ever had a Cheeto and it just melts in your mouth, well, it's a scientific trick to trick your brain. Then there's flavor stacking so that you're never able to adapt. Every time you eat a chip that has saltiness, garlic, it has spices, your brain is constantly going, well, next time I eat it, maybe I'll experience a different flavor. And also they have fake colors and fake smells, all that are mimicking freshness and triggering desire. And your brain never stood a chance. Every time you eat processed food, your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical involved in motivation, reward, and even addiction. And over time, that hit comes with a cost. In 2016, a Yale study used brain scans to compare responses of processed food to whole foods. And this is just them looking at pictures, not even eating the food. And what they found is even when the calories were equal, the processed foods lit up the brain more, especially in the nucleus accumbens, which is the reward center area that's triggered by addictive substances. So what this means is your brain actually prefers stimulation over nutrition. And the more you feed it intensity, the more it wants. But it's not just about intensity, it's also about variety. There was a 2014 study that found that people who ate less flavored varieties were more likely to crave processed food. So if you always ate the same kind of food at every meal, then your brain wasn't getting that stimulation. So what happened? You went out and you grabbed a nice bright packet of Skittles. Why? Because your brain isn't getting the diverse signals that it needs from real foods. It starts seeking artificial stimulation instead. And this rewires everything. Your taste buds start to become dull, real food becomes boring, and the only thing that registered is ultra-processed noise. This isn't about willpower, it's about biology. But the same system that got rewired can be rewired again, and it all starts with understanding what taste really is. So, what is taste? Well, most people think that it's just your tongue. It's sweet, salty, sour. But that's just the surface. You see, taste is a full-body, multi-sensory experience, and your tongue really only registers 5 basic tastes: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. Sweet typically signals energy. Salty helps with hydration. Sour detects spoilage. Bitter often signals toxins, but it can also be antioxidants. And then umami is that savory flavor that you get from protein-rich foods like meats. But real taste comes from more than just your tongue. It's taste, smell, texture, and memory. See, it's a brain-body system that's all working together. And when you eat, molecules rise from the back of your throat into your nose and they activate the olfactory receptors. If you haven't watched my video about the sense of smell, go check out that. It'll explain this in more detail. But it's why foods taste bland when you're sick. Your nose essentially is offline. In fact, 80 to 90% of what you think you're tasting is actually smell. And if you want to do this experience, go grab some berries. It could be blueberries, strawberries, and hold your nose and pop it in your mouth and see if you can identify what it is. Matter of fact, you want to do this with a friend or a family member, or have them blindfolded and have them hold their nose and then give them a surprise berry, blueberry, strawberry, and see if they can identify what it is or just that it's sweet. And then tell them to unplug their nose while they're chewing it and see if they can identify it. And usually they will be able to. It's interesting because smell gives you more nuance. It allows you to identify what the specific herbs or spices or freshness or ripeness. But here's the problem. See, processed foods are loud and real foods are subtle. And when your senses are overwhelmed by artificial intensity, then your brain stops noticing the quiet, the natural. And it's not just that junk food is addictive, it actually numbs your ability to taste anything else. And color plays a major role in this. You see, in nature, color is a signal. Red typically is sugar. Green might mean bitterness or freshness. Orange might mean antioxidants, like a orange. And purple and blue might indicate brain-boosting compounds. But in processed food, color becomes deception. Neon candy and drinks that mimic something natural is not real. There was a really interesting study that was done in 1980 where they had all these participants taste different drinks. But the kicker here is it was all the exact same drink. The only difference is they varied the color. Some were lighter, some were darker. And what they noticed is that people consistently rated the darker ones as sweeter, even though the ingredients were exactly the same. So what does this mean? It means your brain doesn't just react to the taste, it reacts to what it sees, what it smells, and what it expects. So when we talk about rewiring taste, we're not just talking about your tongue, we're talking about retraining your nose, your eyes, and your whole system. And when you do, food starts to come alive again. So how do we do this? Well, we do this with a 30-day reset. It's 30 days to rewire your taste. Now, how do you actually do this? And why do we do this with 30 days? Because your taste buds regenerate every 10 to 14 days. So in 1 month, which people typically do challenges like a month because it's a nice round number, but in a month, because those taste buds are regenerating, your entire system will turn over essentially twice and your brain will have time to adapt. And because processed food has turned up the volume, this reset will essentially back it back down and your body can start listening to your taste again. You don't need to eat perfectly. You don't have to change your diet completely. You just need enough consistency to give your system contrast. And here's how you're going to do it. There's essentially 5 different steps. Okay, step 1 is cut added sugar. Sugar is the loudest disruptor you've got, and it keeps your dopamine system always on edge. It's like the drug addiction that you've got. So cut sodas, sauces, desserts, snacks, and you don't have to cut it completely, but just as much as you possibly can. Just make an effort. And you can expect cravings in the first week or 2 weeks. You might get headaches, you might have some irritability. Just stick with it. It's only 30 days, and you'll notice clarity in the second portion of it. The second step, or step 2, is start reintroducing bitterness and sourness. These are things that we rarely actually eat during our usual day, but it's kind of like resistance training for your tongue. You're starting to reactivate neglected receptors. Things like lemon, vinegar, sauerkraut, unsweetened tea. You can even have like dark chocolate. You rarely eat these types of things, so we're retraining our brain to utilize the receptors that specifically focus in on these flavors, and even a small daily dose will work. Step 3 is smell before you eat. You see, smell is the most important thing for our flavor outside of our tongue, so start taking a deep breath before you take that first bite. Try to name the different things you notice. Do we smell specific flavors? Do we smell specific things? This will start to activate your full flavor system. Step 4 is chew slowly and savor it. So usually we do what? We just kind of scarf down our food and we eat too quickly. But now we're going to do the opposite. I want you to chew each bite 15 to 20 times. I know it feels like a long time, but you're going to let the flavor unfold. Notice if things start changing. Well, the food goes from hard to soft. Well, maybe the flavors go from hard to soft. It was really sour at first, and now it's not so sour because my saliva started interacting with it. See if the changes, see if you can notice these changes. Let your brain actually work while eating, because slowing down actually will let your brain detect the flavor, but also it lets your body register fullness. What used to take this amount of time to eat the whole meal now took this amount of time to eat half of it, and maybe that's only the amount of food that you needed to eat to feel full. And then your last step, step 5, is you're going to keep a flavor log. You can do this on your phone, you can do this on paper, you don't have to write a full journal, but just jot down some notes. So what you ate, and maybe if that specific thing you ate had a specific flavor, write it down. What surprised you? What made you feel full that you didn't before? This doesn't have to be deep. It's just a note. And the goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. And this whole thing isn't about restricting what you eat. It's about reconnecting with what you eat. By day 30, real food will start to taste different. Not because the food has changed, but because you did. You see, your brain will have been rewired. Your cravings will start to shift, and your taste will finally be yours again. So what happens after 30 days? Well, everything starts to shift. It's not just in your body, but in your brain. You might actually see some weight loss. You might feel your energy returning. But what's interesting is your cravings won't vanish. You'll just lose grip on your life. Your triggers that used to pull you in won't hit quite the same. You're not just chasing sweetness or crunch to feel okay. You're just already okay. Your energy levels will return, your focus will come back, your digestion will improve, you'll stop crashing, you'll stop mindlessly snacking, you might save a little bit of money, and you'll start feeling present in your own body. You also might notice subtle flavors again, the pepperiness of a food, the sweetness of the food. You start to feel fuller earlier, not just because you're stuffed, but because your body is sending the correct and real signals again, and you'll start to taste more with less. You don't need to eat the entire chocolate bar. Now you only need a little bit of it because you're chewing it for so long that you're going to get those flavors that you don't need to have the craving for the full bar anymore. You're going to start feeling satisfied earlier. And maybe the most important thing is you're going to start trusting yourself around food again. Deciding what to eat no longer feels like a struggle. It's not a fight. You're no longer negotiating with your cravings. You're just paying attention. This isn't about eating perfectly. It's about clarity. You remove the noise, you retrain your senses, and now your body is back in the conversation. It starts to feel like you can enjoy food again, not crave it. And now that your taste is rewired, it's time to explore another superpower, sound. You may have heard that classical music can help you focus better. Or you may have heard of the Mozart effect, where people say, well, listening to Mozart when you're a baby can actually increase your IQ. So we're going to dive into that in the next video. Can listening to Mozart actually improve your IQ? Can it make you smarter? Does classical music actually help you focus? We're going to dive into the science of it and find out if sound, using it strategically, can actually help you. See you on the next one.